This TSN 1040 podcast is powered by Metro Ford. It's hard to beat a Metro Ford deal. In Fort Coquitlam and online at metromotors.com. This is Vancouver Canadians baseball.
High drive in a right field to the warning track. To the wall, and it's gone! Drilled up the middle. Here comes another run for the Seas. Back to the wall, and it goes up and over. A home run deep to left. That one's not coming back.
Getting you ready for Vancouver Canadians baseball.
This is now more of the Seas pregame show
on TSN 1040.
1-2 is a changeup high and deep to right field. Long ranging run to the warning track. It's gone! Oh my!
Let's talk Seas.
Here's Rob Fay.
Oh man, I've been waiting for this since we pretty much turned on the radio station back in 2005. I'm not sure. Anyways, long of the short of it is we're here at the ballpark. You come across a number of different people. You come across the people that are here for the hot dogs, here for the baseball, and then all of a sudden, every once in a while, you cross paths with the statistical assassin, KP Wee, who joins us here on TSN Radio. KP, how are you, fella?
Doing great. Thanks for having me on the show, Rob.
Anytime. Well, let's talk about this. You're an author. You've done a couple of books, including The Life of Knuckleballs, the Tom Candiotti story. But right now, you're working on a new baseball venture that I think is going to be really captivating. Tell me about it.
Yes, I'm currently working on a book on the 1988 Dodgers. Of course, as you know, it's the last time the Dodgers have won a world championship. But, this year, of course, the Dodgers are doing pretty well. I think they've lost 29 games so far this year. So they're on pace for over 100 wins. But it is coming up on the 30th anniversary of the 88 Dodger team. So Fred Clare, the former general manager of that team, actually reached out to me last December and suggested, hey, why don't we do a book on that team? It's a 30th anniversary, so it's cool to maybe catch up with guys that played on that ball club, guys we haven't heard from since then, and see what everyone's up to. So that's how this project got started.
It's funny because when you wrote the Tom Candiotti book, and correct me if I'm wrong, but that was kind of a cold call, that you just basically called up and said, hey man, I'd love to do this, and then he was kind of like, sure, and then, organically, and I know I'm paraphrasing, but in a nutshell, that's how it went, correct?
Correct, yes. I had written a blog about Tom several years ago, and as his ex-wife Donna reached out to me on Facebook to say, hey, Tom would like to talk to you, because you've written a lot of good stuff about him on this blog, so he'd like to say thank you to you and all that. So Tom and I did kind of talk to each other through Donna, and I came up with the idea, hey, why don't we write a real biography about your baseball career? And Tom was like, hey, let's do it. And what goes
into that? Somebody says, yeah, cool, I'll let you write a book on me. Obviously that's a huge undertaking. How long do you actually stay with the person that you're writing on? Do you move into his house for the summer? How does it go?
With Tom, basically we met up in Los Angeles in 2010 to go over main points of what he wanted to discuss, and then of course, because I live in Vancouver and then he's in Arizona, we had to basically connect with each other by phone. And he was kind enough, of course, to being a broadcaster for the Diamondbacks. Whenever he was on the road, he would be able to take my call and chat baseball, chat about his career. And he made himself very accessible, even though it was by phone most of the time. He was able to talk whenever I wanted to.
Really? So you would just call Tom Candiotti up and be like, all right, take me to 1979, 1980, 1981.
He did mention to me that it would be best if he was on the road, so he would be away from his. He wouldn't have the distractions.
Yeah, it's always easier on the road, right?
On the road, yeah. So we would, definitely would talk about 1986 or 1991 when he was with the Blue Jays, almost won the ERA title but lost to Roger Clemens in the last week of the season. Yeah, so we would talk about different things over time.
Do you consider yourself a baseball journalist? If they're calling you, then you got to feel like you're on that track.
I consider myself fortunate that Fred Clare reached out to me last December. It was just to say, hello, Merry Christmas. Are you working on any new books right now? Would love to see you do one. And that's how we got started. I was very flattered that Fred the former general manager of the Dodgers, reached out to me and said, "Hey, I think you would be a good guy to write a book on the '88 Dodgers, and we'll get you in touch with the players who are on that team, the scouts."
88 Dodgers, not to cut you off, KP, I'm
Right.
sorry if I did. 94 wins that year.
Correct.
But here's some of the names, and I want to talk on, and again, I don't want to take stuff out of your book, but I want to know, because names like Steve Sachs, Kirk Gibson, Pedro Guerrero, Rick Dempsey, Fernando Valenzuela, Don Sutton, Oral Hershiser. I mean, that is a team that now, when you look back on 1988, is much more than Vince Scully, Tommy Lasorda, much more than just, a normal team. That was an extraordinarily built team.
No, actually not so, because I've talked to a couple of journalists who covered baseball at that time. I talked to them last 3 weeks, and both of them told me, hey, when you think back to the '88 Dodgers, you think of Kirk Gibson, you think of Oral Hershiser, but mostly Kirk Gibson and what he did in the World Series. When he was injured, he hit that walk-off home run against Dennis Eckersley in Game 1 to kind of stun the A's. Yeah, and then the A's never recovered. And that's what people remember the '88 Dodgers for, Kirk Gibson and Oral Hershiser, because that year Valenzuela was hurt. Rick Dempsey was, in his third to last season in the big leagues. He was a platoon player, and Guerrero was traded late in the season for John Tudor, who got injured in the playoffs. And Steve Sachs, of course, was one of the regulars. And it's again, if you think back to that team, it was Kirk Gibson hitting that home run basically off of one leg and one arm. And just a dramatic, iconic moment in baseball. Just that home run off Eckersley.
It is. It'll stand the test of time as one of the greatest moments ever. So, obviously, with you writing a book on the 1980, I think it's cool that a guy from Vancouver is writing a book on the 1988 Dodgers and getting this kind of access. So, who are some of the guys that you've been able to strike up conversations with here?
Steve Sachs, the guy you mentioned earlier, he's a motivational speaker right now, and it was cool to talk to him and get his thoughts on the team. Tim Leary, one of the pitchers on that '88 Dodger team, actually pitched here in Vancouver with the PCL Vancouver Canadians. Again, that was '85, and they won a Pacific Coast League championship that year right here in Vancouver. He lives in Los Angeles right now, and was very, very excited to talk about Vancouver and about the '88 Dodger team.
You say excited, are these guys, when you call them and you're like, hey, I'm KP Wee, I'm writing a book on the '88 Dodgers, are they mostly receptive? How does that look?
Most of them were receptive because they feel that this team has been forgotten. It's nobody even talks about them as one of a true good team, a bunch of guys that actually went out there, played hard, and won a championship. They think that they've been kind of forgotten. I talked to Rick Dempsey, who's now the Orioles broadcaster, and he was saying the same thing, that you guys have forgotten about this team. It's you look back, you think about the Yankees, you think about the Red Sox, I guess, the Blue Jays in Canada. Nobody really, I guess, appreciates the Dodgers for what they did in 1988. And again, because the Dodgers have had such a rich history, you think about, let's say, the Brooklyn days and the days when they had Stanley Koufax, Don Drysdale, a bunch of Hall of Famers. And you look at the '88 Dodgers. You mentioned Don Sutton earlier. He actually was released in August that year, so he wasn't.
Well, he was 43.
Right, he was Hall of Famer, but wasn't with the team at the end. At the end there, Pedro Guerrero, you mentioned, he was traded. Steve Sachs was one of the stars. They had Franklin Stubbs at first base. They had a guy named Tracy Woodson at third base. I think they had Alfredo Griffin at shortstop.
Yes, who had time with the Blue Jays as well.
That's right.
Hey, I have to ask, have you got a chance with Tommy Lasorda? Is that even possible? Or
not yet, but Fred, again, the general manager of the Dodgers that season, Fred Clare, he said that, we could talk to Tommy down the road if down the road we could have a chance to talk to him, and even Oral Hershiser and a couple of the guys that are harder to get in contact.
What about Vin? You're on the clock with Vin Scully. That's a guy that witnessed everything and has one of the most iconic calls. Like, does he fit into your book, or do you interview him just to say that you interviewed him?
Well, no, I've talked to Ross Porter, who was a longtime Dodger broadcaster as well, and he was on that 88 team. He actually won a couple of titles. He was there with the 81 team as well as a play-by-play guy, teaming up with Vince Scully. So I talked to Porter to get his thoughts on that particular championship in '88. I've talked to a bunch of guys, like even some guys with the coaching staff, like I said, scouts. So it's not just players, but
you gotta get Vin, man. You gotta get we gotta find a way to fly you down. And you can hang out with Vin even if it's for an afternoon. I bet you get more for that book from Vin in 3 hours than you do from anybody else in 3 weeks.
I couldn't disagree with you on that.
That would be fantastic. Well, KP, I wish you luck, man. I know you're working hard on it. Is Franklin Stubbs not here in the ballpark tonight?
Actually, I just talked to him a couple hours ago. He's
here. Yeah, that's right.
The hitting coach with the Hillsborough Hops. That's correct.
I love it. Well, KP, keep at it, man. I love it. I love that a local guy has taken it to this level. Now you're more than just the guy that did Tom Candiotti's biography. Now you're going after one of the most iconic teams that nobody remembers. And I think that's kind of cool on their 30th anniversary. KB, good job, man.
Well, thanks, Rob.
All right, we'll take a break. When we come back, our final segment, starting lineups, all the stuff that comes with it. And where is the Vancouver Canadians' first rounder? Everybody's asking. I have the answer next right here on TSN Radio.